Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of An American in Thailand, airing every Friday. This program is broadcast to you from Ratchamakhan University of Technology, Peranakan, and it will be coming to you in two parts. For the first part, I will introduce a certain topic about being an American living here in Thailand. Could be about food, travel, culture, politics, current events, anything we want to talk about. We'll then take a break, and in the second part of the program, we'll get into more examples, more specifics, more details of whatever our topic is. All right, let's get to the program. Welcome, everyone. My name is Gary Gray, and I am an American English teacher here at Ratchamakhan University of Technology, Peranakan. It would help if the English teacher could speak English. Yes, I've been teaching here for about 9 years, so I've been here quite a while, and I think that gives me a fairly good perspective on the Thai culture. I've traveled around a lot here as well, so I've seen a lot of Thailand, not as much as I'd like. I've never been down to the south of Thailand, for example, but I've seen a lot of Thailand. I've especially been up north, towards the Isan area. I go up there quite frequently. As we air this program, it's a few weeks before Songkran. In 2026, I'll be going up to the north again for Songkran. So I've been around Thailand a lot. So I get a pretty good feel for Thailand. I still learn new things all the time. But, like I said, been here a long time. I've got a pretty good idea of this country. And so that's why we do this program. We talk about sort of the differences between America and Thailand. And before we get too deep into the program today, just an apology for those of you on YouTube. We have no video again for the third week in a row. I'm not sure what's happened to our video equipment, but it is offline again, so we are just doing audio this week. For those of you listening on the radio, you would not notice that. Alright, so for this week's topic, we're actually going to talk about something that is not different between America and Thailand. It is a little different. We'll get into those details in the second part of the program, but the general idea is no different. So we're going to be talking about interconnection, how we are all interconnected, how we are all dealing with the same issues. And what we're going to talk about this week is something that is related to current events. We talked about this 2 weeks ago on our program because it had just happened. Again, we're in March of 2026, but it is still going on, and even though it does not directly involve Thailand, Thailand does get affected. So it is a current event. So what we're talking about is there is a war ongoing in Iran, and it does affect Thailand. First of all, Thailand does have some direct impact simply because one of their ships got hit. There was a ship in the Persian Gulf that was a Thai ship, and it was hit probably by a missile or a drone. That's not, I did not see the entire story of what it was hit by. It could have also been hit by a boat. Iran has some remote control boats that explode when they hit another ship. It could have even been that. I'm not sure exactly what hit the Thai ship. It was almost certainly something from Iran, because Iran doesn't have really the firepower to win a war like this that's going on. They're really just trying to create chaos, and so they're hitting ships in the Persian Gulf that are not Iranian or Chinese. Those are the only ones they seem to be trying to avoid. Even though Thailand didn't do anything to Iran, Thailand has nothing to do with this war. Thailand is generally viewed as friendly towards the U.S., even though Thailand's also kind of friendly towards China as well. Thailand's kind of halfway in between. We've talked about the Thai military in the past. It's kind of weird. Thailand gets like all of its planes from America, but all of its ships from China, which is weird, since China and the U.S. generally don't get along, at least militarily. I mean, we cooperate economically because we have to, because we're we're such big economies, China and the U.S. Our economies are so big. But like militarily, politically, we're not really friends. So it's kind of weird that a country would purchase half of their military stuff from one of those two countries and then purchase the other half of their military stuff from the other country. So it's kind of funny that Thailand does that. But I think Thailand is viewed generally as being friendly towards America. And so Iran was fine with hitting a Thai ship. So they did. Again, I'm not sure what it got hit with. But so specifically, Thailand gets affected because of that. I mean, they had people there. There's also a lot of Thai people that work in various industries in and around the Arab Gulf states. There's also a lot of Filipinos that work there as well. I think the Filipinos are one of the biggest foreign groups that work there. But there's also a lot of Thai people that work in like UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, all of those countries, Oman, all those countries around there. And so some of those people probably had to evacuate and come back here to Thailand. So there's some direct impact there. But the biggest thing I want to talk about really is how the entire world is affected. And this is what I mean when I say we're interconnected, because the entire world is affected because of the gas prices going up. Now, why are the gas prices going up? Well, okay, so I actually used to work in this industry just before I came here to teach. And it's really quite simple. Gas, or gasohol as it's called here in Thailand. We call it gas in America. In British English, they call it petrol. But I refer to it as gas because that's what I'm used to calling it. But I'm talking about the stuff you put in your vehicle to make it run. So when I talk about gas, that's what I'm talking about. So it's very simple. Gas is made from oil. And 20% of the world's oil, could be a little higher than that. The estimates vary. Some people say as much as 30%. But 20% of it comes from the Persian Gulf. And then the Persian Gulf empties out into the Indian Ocean. So then you go into the ocean, and then you can go anywhere in the world you want to go from there. So 20 to 30% of the global oil supply comes out of there. If you've been following this war, you probably know all about this already. But if you haven't, maybe you don't know about this aspect of it. But go ahead and go take a look at a map of the Persian Gulf. You'll see that there's an area where there's a curve in the Gulf. There's a big sharp curve. And it gets really, really, really narrow. It is, I believe, about 30 miles wide, if I'm not mistaken. And that is off the southwest coast of Iran. And so what Iran is doing is they're making it unsafe to get through that small little area of water. It's called the Strait of Hormuz. 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 It's called the Strait of Hormuz. And so Iran is making it difficult or even impossible for ships to get through there. And I hear a lot of people saying, oh, well, America and Israel are bombing everything over there. Why don't they just bomb that part of Iran so that they can't do that? Well, it's not as simple as that. And they are trying. And they will continue to try. And so eventually it will get back open. Yes. But it's not as easy as it sounds, because Iran has multiple different ways that they can attack that. They have missiles. Now, a lot of their missile capability has been knocked out by the war already, but they still have missiles. It's estimated that they have something like 50,000 drones. I'm sure they've used probably couple thousand already, but that still means they have like more than 40,000 left. So you have thousands and thousands and thousands of drones, and they're stored underground. So who knows if the bombs that the U.S. and Israel are using can even reach the drones. So they have all those drones. They also have, I mentioned before, the boats where they put explosives on those, and it's believed that those are stored underground as well. So it makes them hard to find, and even if you know where they are, can your bombs penetrate that deeply under the ground to wipe them out? So again, it's not as easy as it sounds. It sounds real easy, right? All the firepower that the U.S. has and that Israel has. Sure, just take care of everything that's around the Strait of Hormuz and open it back up. Not that easy. Iran also has mines that they can place in the water. So they have many ways to disrupt that traffic. So it's going to take a while to open that back up. I do think that the U.S. is working on it, and so hopefully it will be opened back up soon. But it's currently closed. And as I said, 20 to 30% of the world oil comes through there. So you've reduced the supply by 20 to 30%. And oil is traded globally. What I mean by that is there's basically one market. There's just one market. So, for example, America is the number one producer of oil in the world. They didn't used to be. This is kind of a recent development, but they are now. Well, then just go buy your oil from America, where it's still cheap. No, that's not how it works. There actually are two different prices for oil. And in fact, American oil is on a different price scale. It's called WTI, which is West Texas. That's on that market. Or I shouldn't say that market. They're traded in the same market, but it's sold as that product, as WTI crude oil, whereas the Middle East oil is Brent. So there are two different ones, but because they're both oil, and you can use either one, they basically go up and down together. So, like the Brent crude oil goes up. Well, what do you think the guys who are selling the WTI oil are going to do? Well, they want to make money. Unfortunately, that's how it works. It's greedy because that's just pure profit for them. The oil companies, Exxon, Mobil, BP, all those companies are going to make a whole lot of money. Unfortunately, that's how it works. It's just pure greed and nothing more than that. Because they could continue to sell their oil for the cheap price, but they don't. So what you see right now with the WTI price, it is a little bit lower than the Brent price, but not much. It's only like a few dollars per barrel lower. So, everyone, my point is, I'm talking about interconnection, everyone gets hit by that because it's a global price. So, even though Thailand has nothing to do with this war, even if Thailand gets their oil from the U.S., which I don't think they do because that's too far away, I believe they probably do use Brent crude here. So Thailand probably does get their oil from the Middle East. But even if they got it from the U.S., again, it wouldn't really matter. Both of the prices go up together. All right, so that is what I mean by interconnection. Everyone gets affected by this. So in the second part of the program, we're going to talk about a little bit more detail about that. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick break right now. Okay, welcome back, everyone. All right, so we're talking about how we're kind of all interconnected with what's going on with this war in Iran and how it's affecting the gas prices. So it's basically, as we discussed in the first part of the program, It's basically because 20 to 30% of the oil that's used in the world comes through the Persian Gulf, and the Strait of Hormuz is being blocked by Iran. So it's causing the oil prices to go up, and of course gasoline or gasohol or petrol, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. That's just refined from oil. That comes from oil. It goes to a refinery. They refine it. Even though I worked in the oil industry before, the oil and gas industry before coming here to Thailand, I did not work in that side of it. I was more on the financial end side of it, which is why I know about Brent and WTI crude oil prices that we discussed in the first part of the program. So I'm not sure how it's refined. I'm not sure what they do to refine it, but it gets refined. So they refine the oil and make gas out of it. So if oil prices go up, gas prices go up. Right, so here in Thailand, I do think, and before we get into some of the numbers, I'm going to talk about some numbers here. But before we get into those numbers, I do want to say that that's kind of the point of this program, is that we're all interconnected. We just have basically one price for oil around the globe. Again, as I mentioned in the first part of the program, there are two. There's WTI and there's Brent, but they basically move in tandem. Sometimes there can be a little separation in the two, and there is right now. The WTI oil is a little cheaper, but not much. It's a few dollars per barrel cheaper than Brent crude. Last I checked this morning, I believe Brent crude was at about $103 per barrel. That's in dollars, sorry, that's how it's normally traded. So I'm not doing it in baht, sorry about that. But Brent crude is at about $103 a barrel as I record this, and I believe WTI was at about 97, something like that. But they were both down around 60 before the war started. So you can see that even the WTI has gone up over 50%. All right, so let's get to some numbers here for gas. Again, I call it gas or gasoline. It's called gasohol here in Thailand. In British English, it's called petrol. Whatever you call it, it's the same thing. I will refer to it as gas. So gas prices here in Thailand are only up about 1 baht per liter since the war began. So that's actually not too bad. That's about a 3% rise, but they are still up. They're up in America about 20%. And you may wonder why. I mentioned in the first part of the program that America produces more oil than anyone. So why are their prices up 20%? Well, again, as I mentioned in the first part of the program, it doesn't really matter. Everyone's buying the oil at the same price. It's a global market. It shifts for everyone. So the real question here is why are gas prices only up that much? The oil prices are up more than 50%. Gas prices are only up 20% in America. And they're only up 3% in Thailand. A couple reasons. First of all, there are things that companies can do to try to avoid raising prices. Also, they store a lot of oil. So most of the gas that's being used now is not from oil that was purchased at the current levels. It was purchased when oil was cheap. And so really the prices shouldn't be up at all, honestly. But these companies are greedy. They know they can get away with it. They can use the war as an excuse. The bad thing is that does mean probably that gas prices are going to go up even more. Now, here in Thailand, again, it's not so bad. Gas prices are only up about 3%. So why is it such a small increase here in Thailand? I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure how the Thai market works for this, but it's very possible. It's very possible that there are government controls on it. And so it may not be able to rise that much or that fast here in Thailand. It's possible. Possible. Again, I don't know. I was surprised to see that it's only up 3%. I will point out, though, that it is still up. And as I mentioned, it will probably go up further. The reason I suspect it might be government controls is two reasons. First of all, again, that 3% rise is quite small. So it's barely up. That's the first reason. The second reason is I do know that the government has controls on other things as well. For example, pharmaceuticals, like medicine, is really cheap here in Thailand compared to America. Really cheap, like unbelievably cheap. So maybe you don't think so, because I know salaries here are also lower. But the amount that medicine is cheaper here, the amount by which it's cheaper, is so huge that even the salary difference doesn't make up that difference. It's just incredibly inexpensive here, or incredibly expensive, you might think, in America. That might be more reasonable to say that. And so I believe there are price controls on pharmaceuticals here in Thailand. So maybe, again, I don't know how the market works here, but they may have the same thing on energy, which would include gasoline or gasohol. So that may be why it's only up 3%. But again, it is still up. And that's kind of my point about this being a global issue. And as I mentioned, the prices will probably go up further. And it could impact the price of lots of other stuff, like the price of food is expected to go up because of this. Why? Because how does your food get to the grocery store? How does it get to Tops or Lotus or 7-Eleven? By a truck. Well, what does the truck run on? It runs on gasoline. So the transportation costs go up. In fact, I'm supposed to be heading up north, as I mentioned, during Songkran. I have not bought my airline ticket yet to go to Udon. I am scared to see what the prices are now. They were already expensive because it was over a holiday. In some parts of the world, ticket prices have doubled because of the price of jet fuel going up. Now again, maybe because we're here in Thailand and gas prices have only gone up 3%, maybe the airline ticket prices have not gone up very much either. Maybe I'll be lucky. I don't know. But as I mentioned, these prices will probably continue to rise. Even though we're only up 3% here in Thailand, it is up. And it's up everywhere. That's my point about how we're all interconnected. Everyone across the globe is seeing this same thing because, again, the oil prices are traded globally. Everyone has the same problem. It could be worse in some countries than others. Like I mentioned, here in Thailand, the price hasn't gone up very much. It's only gone up a little bit. So it's not so bad here. In America, it's pretty bad. So it depends on your country. It depends on how gas prices are controlled, if they're controlled at all. And that's kind of the problem in America. There are no controls. But the impact is going to be the same, generally speaking, at least. In other words, nobody's seeing lower gas prices. That's impossible because the oil is more expensive. Oil's gone up like 60% in the last month. So nobody's seeing lower gas prices. That's not even possible. And it's similar to what we saw, and it's actually kind of a similar reason. I mean, it wasn't because of war, but as far as the supply chain, in other words, getting things from one place to another, which is the problem now. The oil can't get out of the Persian Gulf because the Strait of Hormuz is blocked. So it's just like the same problem we had with inflation coming out of COVID. What happened was the global supply chains were all disrupted because nothing was moving because you couldn't travel. So all the global supply chains were disrupted, but we were coming out of COVID, so demand surged. And it's just basic economics, supply and demand. If there's a more demand for something than there is supply of it, the price is going to go up. It's dumb. It shouldn't happen because it's really just greed. It doesn't necessarily cost them more to make that thing. I mean, it could in the case of coming out of COVID, maybe, because the parts may also cost them more to buy. Because that's also part of the supply chain. So whatever parts they're using to make that thing that you're going to buy. So it could cost them more to make, maybe, but it may not. And they're still going to sell it to you for more. And so they're just going to make more money. And we did see that. Companies had big corporations had amazing profits after COVID. They didn't do so well during COVID because nobody was going out shopping and buying anything. But after COVID, the companies had amazing profits. They were making money off of the inflation. In fact, there was a mini scandal in America about that because a study revealed that they were charging more than what was necessary to cover for the actual, real, true inflation. So if inflation was like 5%, they were increasing their prices by like 8% and then just taking that 3% and putting it in their pocket. That's what a lot of big companies were doing after COVID. But again, my point is that that was a global issue as well. Every country saw inflation coming out of COVID. Once again, just like we're seeing here with the oil prices, it was to differing degrees in different countries had different amounts of inflation. It kind of depended on how they managed their economies. But everyone saw it. The same general impact as far as everyone having inflation. The same general impact was felt everywhere. And so this is a very similar situation here with the oil prices. And so the whole point of this episode is that there are some economic issues, like we saw coming out of COVID, that are global. And everyone is interconnected. Everyone is affected the same way. It could be to differing degrees, like right now here in Thailand, it's not so bad. Gasohol's only up about 3%. So it's probably having no impact on food prices yet, because transportation costs are only going to be up about 3%. So it's not a big cost yet here in Thailand. But it is still up. Everyone is going to see that same thing. And it will probably rise a little bit further as well. So everyone's going to see that same thing. Prices are going to go up because of the price of oil. As I mentioned in the first part of our program, it's traded on a global market. So everyone has to pay the higher price. All right, so that is it for this episode of An American in Thailand. We're talking about the interconnection and the global nature of certain economic things, and we're using current events. What's going on in Iran with oil prices as an example. All right, so thank you for joining us for today's episode of An American in Thailand. Let me reach out to any young people out there who may be considering going off to university here in the next year or two. Why not consider our wonderful university here, Ratchamakan University of Technology, Peranakan. All right, please stay with us and tune back in next week for another interesting episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.